from a podcast called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thursday Want to Talk to You," and I think and I said, you don't have to tell me what it's about. I said, if it's called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," you definitely don't need to tell me what it's about, and I'm going on. This is what I want to do.
It's a Seinfeld podcast. It's called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty." But I thought, this is what a podcast should be.
I just did the Seinfeld guys pod the other day. I came up with
these pretzels are making me thirsty.
Oh,
that one. Shout out. We've done it. I've done it. Have you did it?
I've not gotten a chance to do it yet. I'm looking forward to it.
It's so fun. They're so fun.
When I don't know, it must have shown up in my feed, but I see these guys tweeting about Seinfeld. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I find it's a podcast called "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty."
One of the most popular Seinfeld podcasts is "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," co-hosted by Chris O'Hara and Tony Chulo.
Welcome to "This Podcast Is Making Me Thirsty," the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. You know, today's guest from One World, Flipper, Interceptor, Terminator 3, ER, and of course, she played Noel in the season 3 Seinfeld episode, The Pez Dispenser. Please welcome Elizabeth Morehead. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Liz, such an honor. Pez Dispenser, an all-time episode. So take us back. January 15th of 1992, not too long ago, The Pez Dispenser aired on Wednesday night on NBC. You, of course, played George's girlfriend, Noel, the pianist. Tell us a little bit about how the role came about. I know you were acting for, I guess, a good amount of time prior to Seinfeld, but would love to hear about the audition process and how you secured the role.
Sure. It's really taking me back. I hadn't thought about this in a while. So when I remember this, when I auditioned, I went in with a very different character. I went in, I remember it was at night. I got a call from my agent. I don't know if they had already cast someone else and they were recast or something. It felt like it was very hurried in my memory. Maybe I'm wrong. And I went in with a really kind of neurotic character. I remember hiding behind the door in the audition. They thought it was so funny. It was Larry and Jerry and probably Tom. I don't even know who all was in the room. And I was pumped. I thought it was great. And I got the job. And then I think the second day, they wanted a completely different character. I remember that. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it because the reasoning was I was too much like George's character. That's what they said, because we were both so, neurotic and so needy. And because I was really needy, because I was saying, they hated it, but I was wanting the reassurance. And so that's what I kind of remember about it, and kind of having a day or two where I wasn't sure what we were going to do. And Jason helped a lot. We kind of talked about it, and then I got bigger and bigger and kind of more and more dominant. And they kept telling me to get bigger. Like some of the parts, I just thought, oh, that's too much. They're not going to like it. But they loved it. So, when I was really short with him and I'd forgotten some of that. I just looked at it before this. But, when I kind of dismissed him, and the more I did of that, the more they loved it, because it obviously gave him more to do,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. At the end, especially when you were just like, you lied to me, George. You were really, you really laid into him. And that was, this is season 3, George, for our money, probably the best character of all time. He got a little bit more cartoonish towards the end, but 3, 4, 5 was the meat of that Costanza, when he was kind of that lovable loser who was kind of, nothing ever went right. And he got the whole thing. And you're right. You were really, demanding of him. So that's great.
Now, remember, he was already, he was arguing with them when he broke up with me on that. He was like, I just am too much of a jerk. I cannot do this. And they're like, yeah, do it. When he was kind of like, oh, never expected that. And, kind of self-satisfied. And so, but even then he was already like, this is too far, guys. But they loved it. So
when you said they changed the character, was it a completely different character? Were you still the pianist and the whole storyline was the same? Just
Oh no, the storyline was the same, but just as far as like kind of the dynamics between George and me, between George and Noel, because when I went in, my character was, not confident, like a kind of a neurotic artist, kind of worried that it hadn't gone well and not confident and because it was the scene I think afterwards where and I was more distraught and not angry, more like kind of sad and or scared and but it didn't give him anywhere to go, so the more kind of upset and angry I got, the better for him. So, but it kind of took a while to figure that out. Like I wasn't sure, and we just kept trying different things. I remember that they were very generous, and because there's only a week to shoot these, as you know probably, and so you kind of usually you go in with what you're going to do, and you just you have the week to block it and do it. And so if it's not working, they would usually get someone else that does it, comes in with it. And so I remember that thought thinking, uh-oh, I don't know if I'll do this or not, but
yeah, it's that the scene when you're right after the Elaine laughs and you're in the room. You're right. It's very like, and Jerry and Elaine are in that room too, and they're great. The whole like mental defective and like maybe someone put something on the leg, right? That whole thing there. So most of your scenes were with Jason as far as one-on-one, but you're also at the party, and then the scene we're talking about with the piano after the thing in the room. How much fun was and how much kind of playfulness was there with Jerry and Elaine and you as far as that went? I know you said you worked with Jason a lot, but was there a lot of back and forth with Jerry and Elaine as well? Because they seem to really take to that scene really well with you, the way you kind of bounce that stuff off with each other.
Well, I think that was between them. I loved watching them work. They, with the way they worked together. Elaine was pregnant during the scene. I mean, during that episode. So, I mean, she was amazing because she was so present and there and funny, and then would run off to her trailer sick, I think, in between, so. I did interact with her a little, and Jerry, but it was more watching them work. Jason, I went to lunch with him and Michael, and we talked about it, but everybody was really busy, But it was a lot of fun. They were very generous on set and working together, and try this, try that. And I remember she had given me something. I wish I could remember. I mean, this was a long time ago. So I remember she'd given me a tip on something that I used, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But I do remember more Jason. Like Jason actually took me to makeup and hair because he looked at me at one point and said, "Did you want that or did they want that?" Because when we went really severe with my character and I kept getting bigger and kind of more militant. There was one point where I think they had done my hair like a helmet head. I don't know if you noticed, it was very done, for good reason. But he was saying, I don't know if you'll want that, which was very sweet of him. So we went back and he told them to soften it up a little for me because I was in a John Lynn acting house. We were very much about the character and I hadn't really kind of thought about it in terms of more just how I look besides Noel, and Jason was like, you might want to have them soften that up. So he took me in and said, will you do something? And I remember they did something different to my hair because at that point, I think I was literally like, boom, boom, like, almost like football pads kind of trying to.
Yeah, that black, like lacy kind of dress.
Yeah.
And what's funny, George Costanza giving hair advice. I love hearing that story.
I know. You have to.
So this was you probably filmed this in 1991, actually. So I mean, this was still early stages Seinfeld, still Wednesday night. No one knew who Larry David was. So, like back to that audition, we walk in that room, and I think you mentioned Tom. I'm assuming you mean Tom Sharon,
oh yeah,
the director.
He was the director then.
Yeah, it was a small knit group, right? Jerry and Larry, Sharonis, and pretty much that's it, right? There are probably a couple other producers there, but not many. But
Peter, maybe.
What did you like? What did you know? Like, were you a fan of the show before that? I know you were on Dear John before that, but it was still in the infancy stages. I'm just curious what you knew about Seinfeld, or Jerry in general, or the show in general before you stepped in that room.
That's a good question. I knew about Jerry as a comedian, of course. He was a big comedian, but the show itself, I didn't so much. I mean, I knew of it, but I wasn't a super fan, not then. And what I remember is my family didn't know it at all. I remember I was very excited saying, I got a Seinfeld episode. I got a Seinfeld. And they were like, what? Remember, my family's small town, Missouri.
Right.
My dad was a doctor. My mom worked in his office or ran his office. And the humor. So when I told them that I'd gotten it, they watched some and they were like, I don't get it. Nobody at that point, it was kind of what people talk about. It was new because it wasn't the same kind of comedy that anybody was used to. And so they were kind of like, good for you, but it wasn't a kind of a triumphant moment, which later, of course, I think of my rather brief acting career, I think it was probably the highlight. I can't imagine anything that would be more well known.
Yeah, we're still talking about.
Yeah, look at your podcast.
It's a testament to your your talent and everything else. But speaking of talent, do you have any piano experience? I know you're playing Beethoven's Sonata, I believe, number 8 there. Do you have any background there, or that was all acting?
Well, I do. I did play piano, but I wasn't playing that.
Okay, fair enough.
But now that you say that, it reminded me, my piano teacher from the small town, Missouri, was very upset. She kind of missed the point. Obviously, she watched it as a piano teacher would, and was very upset that they were so rude while I was playing. That's what her takeaway from was from that episode. She went and found my mom working at my dad's office to tell her how rude they were in my recital.
Oh, that's great.
So, I know. I don't think she really kind of got the concept of acting.
Right. And that's Julie, the one who's being rude. And when she falls out, so she goes outside, she runs into John Malika, played by Fred Sanders, who we also spoke with. I don't know if you had any interactions with the other guest stars, especially him, as far as being on set and things like that. That whole party scene, for instance, is one of the all-time best. Who's intervening? The polar bear guy. I don't know how much interaction you had with him or the rest of those kind of guest stars. I think Alan Bloomfield's his name, but such a great character actor. And that whole scene, Kramer was in that scene as well. I think you're only seeing with Michael Richards, but tell us about that kind of that vibe of the, everyone's in Jerry's apartment because people are coming in and out. There just seemed to be a lot going on in that scene. It must have been kind of fun to shoot.
It was. Well, I knew Fred. I don't remember exactly if I knew him before, I think. Or I might have met him then. I always liked Fred. He was in a band. So my husband is a musician and my daughter's a musician, but I knew somehow, Fred could tell. I haven't seen him in years, but he was in a band that we used to go see. And I don't remember if it was before or after, but I do remember being very friendly and his whole Kleenex and how they had, done the Kleenex. It was hilarious. And I think he kind of walked around with that Kleenex a lot, like during that scene in the back to crack everybody up. I remember that. And yeah, the polar bear guys were all great. I didn't know them before, but it definitely had that feel, like a party feel. The whole set kind of did. It was a very friendly set. There are a lot of sets that don't feel that way or didn't. Again, I haven't acted in years and years, but I remember there were some sets that were fun and, and other ones that were not. You just tried to put your head down and go. And this was definitely a fun one.
Yeah, that's the vibe. We've spoken to, close to 200 guest stars, and they all echo that, even from 1990 and 1991 when you were on, all the way to the final one of 1998. Like, at their core, they were inviting. They let the guest stars shine. I think that's, and you brought this up, like you had a great acting career, but one of the most memorable and probably the most one you're most known for, like publicly, is Seinfeld. Like, it just they let the guest stars shine in a way no other show could, right? Like, you were on NCIS and all these other things, but and did a great job. But you're Noel. You're that pianist, right, from Seinfeld that people know.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how they did that. Credit to Jerry and Larry, of course, but yeah, you're seeing. I mean, this episode's just it comes on, you never want to turn it off. You know what I mean? And you yelling at George, "I was humiliated," and like talking about the cracking the knuckles, and I said I don't feel like it. Like, you really kind of you bossed him around. I mean, so you talked about it a little bit, but how was that pivot? Because it sounded like that happened like day 2. Like, hey, you got to change your tone. Like, did you work mostly with Larry on that, or Sharonis, or was it kind of a combo deal? What do you recall?
No, I think it was because they really trusted the actors. They didn't give me the direction at first. I remember he said something like, after we had done, it might have even been the first day. No, I think it was the second day. After we had done it, because you do the table read, and then we did it out on the set. And I think it was the second day we did it. He was like, do something else. Just like kind of, I was like, oh, anything, like, what do you mean? And he was like, just try something else, which is great. If I had had another something ready,
or more time probably too, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, so I remember kind of going back. I do remember thinking, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get fired. I don't know what they want. But then it was Jason who was really like, well, you can do this, and then we tried, and that's when I started bossing him around more. Just kind of, I don't think we had locked into get really bossy. It was more organic. Like, well, that line came out more bossy, and then that line, and then all of a sudden it started becoming that, and then the physicality of getting bigger and kind of, diva. It was the diva. It was the different character, more of a pianist who was a diva that was demanding. And I remember they really trusted the actors to do their job, which is nice, because you're right. A lot of times directors do try to kind of choreograph you. It's more about do this. I had worked, I got my first SAG job. I got my SAG card working on a Ken Russell movie. And it was a terrible movie. I don't know if you edit this or not, but it was Whore. The Teresa Russell had starred in. Can I say that?
Yeah.
What do they say?
You can say it. You could say it. We weren't sure if we could say it, so we.
I know, but it was literally like, because I had actually been a reader for Linda Francis, was the casting director on that, and I had been a reader, and I had seen this small part that I thought maybe I could, at some point it would come up, and sure enough, it did, and I got it. But that was an experience where it was literally like, put your hand here, now react, react. And as an actor, that's really hard to do, because you're just kind of, I didn't know why, but anyway, and that was kind of disappointing, because I had done a whole Ken Russell Film Festival before, because I loved his work, and I'm so looking forward to it, but it was not a great experience. But in this case, in Seinfeld, it was opposite. They were really kind of letting you do it. But wait, no, at the end, the most famous line,
right? Yes, exactly.
They definitely choreographed that, and thank God they did, because I would have never made it that funny.
All right. I was just going to say, when you said put your hand here, put your hand there, it's perfect segue for you got head, you're going to need it, which is an all-timer. I mean, for our money, probably one of the greatest, punchlines in the show's history. Up there, Real and Spectacular and Dolores. These kind of things are still talked about, 30 years later. So, I mean, your delivery and, I am breaking up with you, one of the best of all time. I can watch that 100 times. So, I mean, like you said, you got the direction, but you had to deliver. And really, I can't imagine the crowd's reaction because it's a live audience. When you said, you got hand, you're going to need it. What was that like to have the crowd there?
Oh my
responding?
gosh. I felt like we were all like a bunch of, preteens getting away with it and with our parents in the other room or whatever, because there was a lot of talk about standard and practices. And, there was like, I swear they had a betting pool or something, is this going to make it past or is it not? I think Jason was sure they were going to cut it. I don't know what Larry, again, because I was a guest star. I wasn't in on the meetings. And I think it was, I could be wrong, Jerry and Larry saying, yes, keep it. And Jason saying, no, it will never fly but it did. I can't believe it. And it was, that was kind of the fun of it was that we could get away with saying that, or I could,
right.
As I was saying it, it was just, I have to say I was a little bit out of character. I was chuckling to myself that I could actually say that.
Yeah, they started pushing the envelope more and more after that. But before that, like you said, that was one of the first times something like that was sort of, said.
The whole episode they were doing stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The whole episode, and they definitely went for it, like you said, and network television, NBC, the whole thing. I mean, for our money, I always talk about this. As perfect as an episode is, and it's nearly flawless. I mean, like we just talked about everything you did. I wish that was the ending. Like they were still another about 30 seconds later where Jerry kind of wrapped it up. It's like. Yeah. I almost feel like, they should have just made it a shorter episode if they didn't have anything else. Because it would have been a perfect, button on the whole episode. But I guess they had more time and they had to kind of, wrap up some stuff with the guy, what's his face? Not Marty Benson, but the other guy. But anyway, it would have been perfect if it just ended there. But I always think of it, that's when the show ends. I don't even really, watch the last 15 seconds, whatever it is, because your delivery is so good.
Well, the line delivers itself. There's really, I don't think I could have screwed that up because it was the line. But no, the part they choreographed so much was when I recognize it's her laugh. That was the part where I'm supposed to be talking with Jerry and she's talking with the polar bear guy.
Yes, I love that. Well, actually, look, what are you and Jerry talking about?
That's a good question.
Were you lip syncing or were you actually talking to him?
No, I think we were talking. Just
so good, you two right there.
Yeah, we were just. I don't remember. He's asking. We were just making small talk.
Yeah. So
yeah. They were again very generous, made it easy. But I remember it was Larry who kept saying, "Make it bigger." That look, and I couldn't believe how, because in my mind, I was just, it was just like, and it was, he kept saying, no, bigger, bigger. So I just drew it out, the slow turn, the scowl and all. But in my mind, it was so big and such a caricature, he wouldn't like it. And then when I saw it, I realized exactly why he'd done it, and that just like they know comedy. Can't say that was my forte. I was always a crier, basically. I wasn't a comedic actress. I was more someone who could, was in touch with my emotions. And so, like, I have to hand it to them because I thought, no way. When he kept saying more, bigger, slower, fast, it worked.
It was interesting. You said that you're an actress who is in touch with their emotions because that's your character. And you kind of touched on this. You were really good at that. You went from the highs to the lows to, from George being mean to you in the diner and you being that very passive to then you going back and turning on him and being, so that showed, that must have saw something in that was your kind of MO,
Yeah, I guess. Huh. I was trying to think. I think it was, well, I actually don't know the chronological. I think that was the year I did a little play for a long, long time that it was when the Ovation Awards first started because I was nominated for an Ovation Award and I cried every night. And that was why I said I was a crier. It's called Spectre, a Don Nigro play. We did it at Theater and another theater, an actor named Daniel Franklin. I don't know if he stayed in acting. I don't think he did either. And so, yeah, it was kind of a very different muscle, very different muscle for acting. And kind of going between all the different mediums was.
Yeah. So speaking of acting, you've touched on this. You grew up in a small town in Missouri. By the way, is it Missouri or Missouri?
Well, it depends on where you're from. So in my area, it was Missouri. Around St. Louis and certain suburbs, I think, of St. Louis, they would say Missouri because I think it was a little more refined. But it ends with an I, so I don't know how you get an or an E out of it.
Yeah, America, everyone speaks a little different. So
it's better than the places like Cairo, Illinois near me, or Palestine, whatever. I mean, this is Missouri.
Right, is what it is.
We slander all names equally.
So good old Missouri. And at what point did you know, like this? Again, you've had multiple careers. It sounds like, and you're doing great. It sounds like now, but as far as acting goes, like at what point did you know, as a little girl in Missouri, your mom and dad, working together?
Well, my sister was the actress in school when we were growing up. I was more the athlete, but I had, I would read her lines or, family dynamics. My older sister, she was the actor, so I wasn't. But I had gone, I think it changed. I had always enjoyed it secretly. And then I came out to LA originally to go to grad school in international relations. I had a fellowship because at that point I spoke Arabic. Now I don't. I've let it go. But that was in the 80s when Mandarin and Arabic, the non-Romance languages, it was easier to get funding. And I had always wanted to travel. I was the one who kind of wanted to go. And my parents had sent me on an AIFS trip, those American Institute for Foreign Studies. And one of the places, it was a 6-week program in Greece, but we went through Egypt. And that, at the time, I had studied a little bit about Lebanon, before the 75 war. And so I just thought it was terribly romantic. And, obviously that was ages ago. And so I had chosen Arabic as the language, and I was a Middle Eastern specialist. And so I was out that, but the International Relations School was right next to the von Kleinsmid Center was right next to the Stopgap Theater at USC. And I found myself over there more and more and more. And then I started doing plays there, and then I helped on the student films there, and that was kind of more my people.
Wow.
I just seemed to always be there more.
I thought, so instead of being with George Bush in the CIA with George Costanza on the set of Seinfeld, right?
Well, but it's a different animal. The USC people were not going to sit for the Foreign Service exam.
Right.
Pretty much. That's they were more academics. It was a whole different, it was the dependencia theories. It was a very different kind of crowd than, say, the Georgetown International Relations group.
An amazing path, nevertheless. And then obviously it sounds like you fell in love with LA.
I did. Well, I don't know if I fell in love with LA. I think I had worked in Yellowstone, and so I more my husband and I do a lot of backcountry. So when we both ended up in entertainment for our living, but we have a place up in the Sierras, and then here, obviously in Fiji, we're very, very remote. There's no roads on this island, and we kind of more like that. But Los Angeles was definitely interesting, very interesting compared to the town of 5,000 I grew up in. And
right. When you do the backcountry in Yellowstone and stuff. You ever go to Montana at all? I worked at Glacier National Park for a couple of years.
Oh, you did?
There. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Oh, well, you were right above us. So I worked at Roosevelt Lodge, the northern part of Yellowstone.
Okay.
And now we more go up. So our place is like a canyon over from Yosemite. And so,
okay. Yeah. That's more west, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Would be,
I had applied to work at Glacier, but I didn't get there.
Oh, is that right?
I got accepted at Yellowstone. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I applied. I just applied to a whole bunch of places.
Same.
And I just randomly, I got I don't know, for me with the luck, Many Glacier, I don't even know Many Glacier at Glacier Park, but it's like the one right on Many Glacier Lake. It's unbelievable. And so, yeah, it was unbelievable. That's funny. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things, like Chris said, it's just like these things kind of take you around, and you never know where it's going to take you. But, just kind of just getting back to Seinfeld for one more question I had, because you mentioned him earlier, but we didn't really, I don't know how much more you have on it, but for our money, like we said, season 3, 4, and 5 is the meat of Seinfeld, the prime of Seinfeld, and a lot of it had to do with Tom Sharonis, the director, who's also a Midwesterner. So I don't know if you had like a connection there with him, or like how much, what was his kind of. We didn't get a lot from our guest stars on kind of what his vibe is or how it was to work with him. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, but we were really big fans of his.
Yeah, well, let me think. I remember he was very kind, and I remember he was a very calm presence. And he did seem kind of like the adult in the room. He was quiet. I remember that he was kind of more reserved with the guest stars. I don't know how he was kind of with the regulars, but he seemed like he seemed very thoughtful. And the director, he's trying to figure out how he's going to shoot it and kind of the angles. I don't remember him getting as involved with the actors and the interpretation and the creative kind of part in that, but he seemed like, and I could be wrong. I mean, again, this is a long time ago, but I do remember him just kind of getting it done. Like he seemed like he was the guy who, knew kind of big picture how it was going to be put together. I mean, obviously he was the director. So
that episode
I really liked him, but that's all I remember.
Because that episode talking about putting together, everything fell into place, which they didn't do a lot of. They started to do it early, but when the Dispenser had, it wasn't their MO per se, as it turned out to be, where all the 4 characters kind of came together. But in your episode, they all did. So yeah, you're right. He did have to kind of bring it all together. So.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so much fun when I finally decided to do this with you all. I've been meaning to watch it. And, it's just acting is so kind of a different life for me, or it's long ago and far away. I just hadn't. And I was like, oh my gosh, I better, because they're going to ask me and I don't remember. And I had so much fun just watching it. And then I was thinking, we're
having so much fun with you. That's I'm glad I kept pestering you, Liz, and you finally said
oh my gosh.
Well,
I was just thinking, I haven't done this in years. I don't have any makeup here. I don't know. I like, what am I going to do? I don't want to go. I'm glad I did.
I know. So we always ask, like, guest stars, after this happened, like, what was the impact? I know this was 91, 92. Seinfeld wasn't Seinfeld yet. Like, the soup Nazi took off, and now he's dressing up and making money left and right. I'm curious from your perspective, and obviously you had a fulfilling acting career after that, but do you attribute any of that to this appearance on Seinfeld?
Oh yeah. It became. I remember I think I might have gotten my agents from it. For a little while I had Sandy Bressler and John Kelly as my agents. I think they were Nicholson's, or Sandy Bressler was Nicholson's agent at one point, or I think maybe for a long, long time. And I mean, at one point, I had an agent, a manager, a lawyer. I'm trying to remember. I think it might have come from this. I remember I got in the room with a lot of big casting directors, which of course I don't know that now. I can't tell you who it was, but I remember being very impressed that I got in the room. But it was a little bit weird because I was on Seinfeld, so I kept getting called in for these comedic roles, and I wasn't that good at it. I mean, I was kind of like, oh, because it wasn't really my forte. And there also weren't a lot of comedies kind of written like that,
Right, exactly.
So,
That's the thing is they don't know. I mean, obviously you were great, but Larry's writing the episode. The thing you're going to be auditioning for is not going to be as good as Larry's writing. So, I mean, that's interesting.
I know
you say
it's
that.
it's like the Larry David show. I love that because it's the similar, like he finally, started his own show with the same voice. I mean, it was it was like the Larry and Jerry show on Jerry's, I remember. And so, yeah, but the different kind of comedy with the timing, that was terrible. And then for me, my life changed. I was trying to have a family. I was very involved with that because, we forgot to have kids and I was getting older and I was like, if we're going to have kids, I got to do it now, And so I ended up in children's, a lot of kids shows to kind of pay the bills. And then my husband's career took off and at that point I'd gone into acting for the art of it. And then I just didn't quite get the kind of roles I wanted. And then he went on, he executive produced The Bachelor for a long time. So when his career kind of took off, we ended up having 2 children, and then I started looking around for other things to do. And when I had done Flipper in Australia, I'd learned to scuba dive, and we loved scuba diving, especially me. And so, and we loved the South Pacific because we had lived in Australia and gone to Solomon Islands and down here for the scuba diving. And so we kind of started thinking of other things that interested us.
You are a nomad.
Yeah,
man.
it's I mean, from backpacking to scuba diving, you've covered like the whole spectrum.
We like off the grid kind of stuff.
Great.
So
were you Flipper, Jessica Alba, the whole thing? Did you?
Jessica, yeah.
Yeah. She's made a couple bucks, huh? So
we called that, Martin and I did. I was like, I just like looking at her, and I mean, I'm not a lesbian or anything, but I was like, I just enjoy looking at her, and Martin's like, yeah. And I said, oh my gosh, she could be a star, whatever they talk about that, that's something. You just
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you, and you mentioned your kids, we always like to ask, are your children fans of Seinfeld? Like, has it?
No, I'm sure that I don't think they've ever seen anything.
Well, they got to watch this, so maybe they'll hop on the bandwagon here with us.
No, I don't think. No, I'm sure they won't. Except that's not true. My son and I liked action movies. We kind of did. We used to watch we did westerns, then we did Quentin Tarantino movies and stuff. And so I showed him Interceptor. I'd done this plane movie with Jürgen Prochnow was the bad guy, and Andy DeVoff had stowed away on my plane, and he just happened to be a fighter pilot, and it was a big action movie. Or it wasn't, I never did it was not a big action movie. I liked it. It was fun.
Right.
It was another fun one to do, but my son liked that. I don't think my kids have ever, they don't think of me as an actor, and I'm not going to be one of those people like sit down and watch this. I had a life before you.
But I mean, for my money, the Dispenser could be top 10 episode all time. Yeah. You can't not enjoy that one. I mean, that breakup scene. I can't. We haven't talked about the breakup scene at Monk's. I mean, didn't we have fun doing the crossword puzzles?
Oh yeah.
I mean, George was so cocky. It was just.
I know he's never that cocky either.
Your dynamic was just amazing. Like, I know I can make you happy, right? I mean, brilliant.
I know. Well, that was
Liz, I think Noel is my favorite Costanza girlfriend. I gotta say,
I love it. Right? I know. There was a point when I was still acting. I said, well, maybe they'll ask me to be back on. And I had run into Jason at the Y, and Jason goes, "No, we're one of my girlfriends." They get killed off. Like if you had been a different character. But
did you continue to watch watch the show? And did you have any like favorite episodes, or you were just moving on?
Yeah, I'm going to now. Like now, I'm going to go back and watch them all because at the time, I didn't have a TV for a long time. I hadn't, but now I think I will because I enjoy. I mean, literally, the hour before or half hour before I got on this, I thought I better look at that, and I laughed so much. So yeah, I think I will now.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
of course, I know the popular, the Soup Nazi, the phone call, like the popular ones.
no, the start from your season, basically, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and your episode in particular, obviously. But yeah, I mean, those are the good ones. But yeah, I mean, like you said, and it's funny, you could put it on now, 30-something years later, and you're still laughing so much from it, right? There's just that timelessness to it and relatability to it that we like to say because everyone's been in that position where it's like trying to hand. I mean, you don't think about these things until someone like Larry David and your performance brings them out to us. So it's just one of those things where it's going to live on forever. So
there you go.
Yeah, Liz, listen, you are the salt of the earth. This was so much fun. Pez Dispenser will live on forever, and I mean Noel, pianist. We can't thank you enough for spending so much time. And listen, if you need someone to house sit in Fiji,
let us know.
You have our email.
Let us know.
Well, this is a business. It's not a house. So if you all want to come scuba diving, look us up.
More than
Can I say what it is?
Yeah,
sure,
of course. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
It's onetaresort.com. And it's ONETA, onetaresort.com.
Yeah, we'll put
Perfect.
the link.
We'll put the link in. Yeah. When we air it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm sure. Yeah. There's a great. No, I was just thinking of Jerry. When Jerry goes scuba diving in an episode of Seinfeld. I was thinking of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seinfeld fans will remember that one. But thank you so much. This was so much fun, Liz. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.